Oh my gosh. It would be, I'm screwed. So I'm Rajeev, Nirmalakhandan. I was born in Sri Lanka, which is a tiny island. It's got over 20 million people. And growing up, I had a multitude of head scratchers, meaning medical issues where we'd go to London and see different doctors. There was a lot of like, could be, maybe. And we discovered I had a condition called syringomyelia, which by the time they discovered it, I was so elated that they discovered it, because for 3 years prior, I was having struggles and dealing with stuff, especially going through high school. When I started driving, it was just so hard. And I was like, driving can't be this hard. Everyone's doing it. So I tried my left leg and everyone thought I was crazy, but all of a sudden, it was just unbelievable. I could feel my foot, I could feel the pedal, and I could drive, and I love driving. So since I was 15, I've been driving using my left foot. I couldn't do things the normal way. Everything just seemed to be more difficult. So then I had a surgery. It was a spinal surgery in 95, which was a very intense surgery where they put a shunt, which is a tube that goes from a cavity in my spinal cord with a pressure control valve. I remember applying for the UCLA application right after that surgery. And I could only sit for 5 minutes at a time. Otherwise, my back would be, the pain was tremendous. So I would literally get up, work on my application for 5 minutes, go lay down, then get up again. And, it was very dramatic for my parents, thinking right after this surgery I was going to leave my small town and go to Los Angeles. But I was like, I got some hardware in my back, but I could do this. So I went to UCLA, and it turns out there was a surgeon there who is an expert in my condition. So he told me, he's like, well, the shunt is really not the best approach. I was like, excuse me? He's like, well, it gets clogged, it doesn't really work that well. And after the first surgery, I said, never again in my life. So then he somehow convinced me I need another one. So then in 98, I had another spinal surgery, and equally intense. In 2005, there was another spinal surgery in the lower part of my spine. Finally, 2015 was the last one, where, if I could say even more intense, it was 15 hours, 2 surgeons. It was in a Cleveland clinic. I remember I asked the orthopedic surgeon, I was like, can you explain to me what are you going to do? He's like, do you want it medical terms? Do you want lay terms? And I was like, yeah, give it lay terms. He's like, I'm going to break your back and I'm going to put it back together. I was like, okay. People have bad hair days. I have bad leg days. I feel like I've had to learn how to walk 5 times in my life. First as a toddler, and then 4 times afterwards. I would make jokes with the nurses and make the nurses laugh, and I could barely move. And they're like, how could you be in such a good mood? I was like, well, if I was in a bad mood, it's just going to make everything even worse. So I have a disability, and it's visible, the way I walk with my cane. But in America, no one ever asks me about it. It's just accepted. But in Sri Lanka, it was really different. Like, people would be randomly, what happened to your leg? Very nonchalantly, what happened to your back? Why do you have a cane? And, it was surprising at first, but I actually kind of liked it, because it allowed me to open up and talk about what the issue was. That was a film very close to my heart. It was a story I came up with after I did a documentary on kids with autism. It was in my heart. I wanted to tell a story about something to do with someone with autism, but in a very empowering, uplifting way. So I came up with a story, and I teamed up with a friend of mine that used to work at CMI and produced it locally. We cast Rumor Willis and Chris Marquette in it, and shot it mostly in southern New Mexico. It was a road trip movie. We screened in about 10 festivals across the country. And what was really eye-opening is I always understood the power of films and how they can touch people, but this really opened my eyes, because as I sit in the audience watching the film, almost the same jokes, the same moments would get the same reactions. And that's like the uniting power of film, which I find very powerful.
What is your favorite story or moment that came from behind the scenes or on set from the Oddly?
Yeah, so there's so many stories that occur when you make a movie, but I remember one that's so memorable. We were shooting, this was probably third or fourth day, we were shooting out in the desert, and we had these big lights, these big bright lights. We were out in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden, these locusts, these bugs started appearing. More and more and more. And it became almost like a biblical plague. The crew, they were just wearing coats of these insects. Everyone's, the actors are panicking, and they're like, Raj, why did you not? I was like, I didn't know this. I didn't know this kind of phenomenon happens. But yet we couldn't simply stop or quit. We had to move forward. So yeah, I was terrified. I've never seen these many bugs in my life. It was like that scene from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. But I had to hold my ground and create an environment of calm for these two actors so we can finish the scene. Creativity is a great way to connect with people. I was a small brown kid from Sri Lanka, and I felt like an outsider. But soon I started drawing. It brought down that wall because I was connecting with other people through creativity, and they started to get to know me, and I was able to make friends, and I started to belong, and I wasn't so scared. I really feel I'm kind of in an odd place in my life right now, like kind of a transition place. I don't really find myself in a specific place. I guess because over the last year, there's been tremendous changes in my life. I got married, and I had a baby, which has changed everything. And I've been teaching for 15 years, and I love it. But I also wonder, what is something else that I could do? I've got 2 scripts that, I'm trying to get made. So I think, where am I in this journey? I would be like the guy that pulls off from the side of the road to look at the map, just to kind of look at where he is and where he's kind of headed. What it makes me a hero is that we are all confronted with struggles and hurdles. Some of them larger than others. Some of them are visible, physical. Some of them are psychological, emotional. But it's how you overcome that and look beyond yourself and try to help others, try to impact the world in some positive way. So, like I said earlier, I could look and say, hey, I've had all these health issues and surgeries, and I have to deal with a disability, and just close off. Or I could say, no, I want to be a good husband. I want to be a good father. I want to be a good teacher. I want to do creative work, and making an impact, a positive impact on others. It could be even just simply listening to someone. It could be just a kind word or a kind gesture that to that person can mean so much more.